So I got all my rings filed to spec, obviously, guys. Assembled the rods, the pistons, put the rings on, everything. I left one completely untouched just to kind of show you the process, the way I do it. You can see kind of, I mean, little things I do. I don't know if it's a trick, but just little things I do or how I'm assembling it. So I've got my rod here. First thing I'm gonna do, take it apart. I am gonna submerge the bolts in 30 weight oil. That's what Manly recommends. Like that's what they ask for. So I just drop them in there, pull the bottom off. First thing I do with the rod, once I've got it to this state, is I get a clean tap. I'm gonna clean that out. That there is just to make sure there's nothing on there. Get a bunch of oil on there. I basically just chase the threads just because I want to make sure that there's no burr in there, that there's no, everything's gonna go in smooth. So I'm real generous with the oil. And what I'm looking for, I should be able to put it in by hand is what, right? There it goes. I should be able to spin that all the way down by hand. Again, this is just chasing threads, chase all the threads when I'm doing something like this, just to clean it up, make sure there's no burrs in there. So I should get it all the way down by hand and back it off. Like so. Same thing, just in case there is a burr. If I did pick something up, I'm gonna blow it off again. Lots of oil on there. Same thing to the other side. This is just, you know, this is, again, to have it, guys, I just want to make sure that there's no burrs in there, that it's not catching anything, that when I go to torque it down, it's going to torque to exact spec. So again, should be able to get her all the way down there by hand. Take that out. So that's that. I'm going to take blow them out, make sure they're clean. From there, I've got my bearings. So, I'm going to install my bearings there, like so. Like that. So, now that I got my bearing on there, I'm going to put this back together. I'm going to put these bolts back in. What I'm going to do, I'll take it over. Lots of oil on there. Screws down. Come on over and I'll show you. So I'm going to go over to the vise. When I say vise, guys, I do have nice soft rubber pads on there, so I'm not damaging anything when I do this. But I'm going to put that in there. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to torque it down and then check for clearance. So 55 foot-pounds is the torque rating for these. I'm not going to torque it right to 55 first time there. So there it is. It's torqued to 55. Now I'm going to get my bore gauge out. My bore gauge has already been dialed in because I've done the rest of them. I should be between 2 and 3 thou. 2 thou minimum, 3 thou maximum. So right there. I'm right at 2.5 thou. So I'm exactly where I want to be at full crush. So that's that. And then I'm going to break these loose again. I don't want to use my torque wrench here to break that loose, so take that off there. This is just not good habit to use a torque wrench gripping on the springs there to break it, so. So, break that again. That's it for over here. So, what I do. But I can leave that on there for this. So now I got my piston. I'm gonna use some assembly lube. I'll be pretty generous with it. That in there like so. Now I'm gonna install my clip. Now this clip is important. This clip just makes sure that it doesn't, you want to make sure that it goes down where it's supposed to. I always put assembly lube on before I put the clip in, just so that it slides a little easier and it's not ripping on the. Spin that around a little bit there. So you want to make sure that clip's in there good. It's sitting inside the ring that it's supposed to be sitting in there. Everything is good. And I've already gone ahead and spec'd all my pins. So like I know that the clearance and tolerances are all good where they should be. Lube that up. Slide that in there. Give that a little assembly lube as well. Again, I'm being pretty generous with the assembly lube, guys. Just want to make sure that everything is lubed up for first fire up. And slide that through. So it's in there. I should be able to push that down in here. That's in. So for those of you who maybe haven't assembled a lot of pistons, like put the rods on, the pins in, eye protection's pretty good because those pins do fly out a lot. You know what I mean? I've put in quite a few of them, so I've gotten pretty good at it. But if you're new at it, those pins do come out. They start flying all over the place. So that's it. It's on there now. So I'll just install the rings. I won't bore you with that because installing them, maybe I will bore you with it. So I'll take you back over here. I'm going to give a shot of WD just to lube it up. Now, in the instructions given to you by Total Seal, they highly recommend you using ring pliers, piston ring pliers, which I mean I'll probably use for these ones here. I don't like using it for the oil ring, and the reason for that is I'm not sure if you can see that ring. It's very tiny, but on the expansion ring at the back, it's got a little tiny jawed out that this ring here is supposed to sit in, and it sits in like that. And if it sits up above it or if it sits below it, a lot of people have troubles with this. Then this oil ring doesn't move the way it should. So I like doing this by hand, just because I can feel what I'm doing, I can see what I'm doing. So also very simple. Like these aren't like, you know, high compression rings. So I'm going to drop the compression ring in there first. And I drop the bottom ring on. So the reason I drop that on like so is for just that reason right there. Sometimes that ring comes out. There we go. So now that top ring is on there, that bottom ring is on there, right? It's moving around the way it should. And I can see that the oil scraper ring is a couple thou out from the expansion ring, which is the way it should be all the way around. So go ahead. Now, to make my life easier, I have one ring on. This one here, this is the top. So I'm going to take this bottom ring, and I have it out. I'm going to spin it around, and I'll show you kind of where the rings belong as I'm installing it into the block.
Yeah, bring that here, one day I'll see what looks like
So all these little things here, making sure that these rings are in the right spot. I'm going to do this one for over here. And slide that down there like so. So, it's on there. It's moving like it should. Adjust my top ring just a touch here, make sure it's where it should be. That's where that should be. So there's that. So, these here, I left. So you can see it slides in there. It's just a bit of a burr from the filing, from file fitting the rings. There's just a bit of a burr there, and it doesn't slide in quite as nice as I'd like it to. So I'm going to file it. And when filing it, you always want to make sure you're going in. You're not bringing a burr to the outside. So I'm just going to like that. So I am going to slide that in there, and that's what I'm just looking for. This, I just want to make sure that it's sliding in, it's not catching anywhere, that the ring is going to sit properly once I put it on. So like any other ring, dot up. This is the second compressionary ring. They want it dot up. Now I'll use the pliers just to see what's side that's Oh, there's that. Oh, nice and clear. Just spin that around. There. And same thing with the top one. Right. You just want to make sure that all the tolerances are right. Now the top one, you can't see it. It doesn't have a dot or a laser mark or anything. It does, however, have a very small bevel on the inside there. So we want to go bevel side up for that ring. And that's it. So that's done now. The rings are on there. I'm going to take this cap off again. Again, guys, I'm going to drop this in the 30 weight oil. Submerge the whole bolt in the oil. Like so. Cap is going to come off. Assembly lube. Again, I've already got the crank covered here. I just left this one out here to show you. So this is where it comes to the important part. Piston's going to go in like this. Shows you where the front of the engine is. There is a specific order that they want the ring. So top ring is going to go to the top. The bottom ring is going to go 180 degrees all the way around to the bottom. The oil ring, the expansion ring, is anywhere in the top area there. So mine's right in the middle. Then they want the top ring on this side, 33% of the way around. The bottom ring on that side. So everything's the way it should be. Now I have, obviously, any piston ring, any of the ring compressors is going to work. I have this one here from ARP. It's set to my exact bore. So, I mean, it makes my life easy. I knew what I was building, but if any want to work, you can get one at your local store. And there, set that on there. I'm gonna push. Now I shouldn't have to use too much effort. I should be able to push it down there. I push it down to where the rings are. Just a couple soft taps. If you're finding you're having to work to get it in, stop, pull it out. There's something wrong. Obviously it's caught a ring or it's done something. So let me just guide this down and I'll spin it around for you guys. So there it is. Just gonna spin that so I can get the bolts on. Same thing. Make sure there's no dirt or dust or anything in there. Lots of assembly lube. And that's gonna drop on there. I'm gonna take these bolts. I'll permit all the way to the bottom with my fingers. Like so. My torque wrench is already set to 55. I'm going to check just to make sure. So I'm just going to tighten those down. Make sure that cap is on there evenly. On there. And it's my 55. That's it. So that's it. We got them all in there. I'm just going to spin it by hand a couple times just to check for clearance, the oil sprayers. So I'll get in there with a light, make sure that everything's clear, all the tolerances are clear, which I'm sure they are. And I'll button up the bottom end. So that's it. They're all in now. I've got a little bit more to do. I'll throw the oil pump on, stuff like that, but that's it. That's how the pistons go in. So everything's been spec'd. Piston ring's been filed to spec. All of my tolerances are exactly where they need to be, or where I'd like them to be. And that's it. I'll button up the bottom end, put the oil pump on, the oil pickup, stuff like that. Onto the long block.